Since that time and over the years, we've discovered that the largemouth bass often grabs and ejects a lure, and this is a common occurrence with all bass. So what do you do about this kind of situation? Well, I'll tell you what I started doing after I saw the bass grabbing and blowing out the lure some 20+ years ago. Now, whenever I feel the slightest tick or bump, I set the hook. And you'd be surprised how many more bass I've caught since then.
Learning from experience how to fish more effectively is the whole point of this new video. It aims to provide an experience you couldn't get on your own. An intimate underwater look at bigmouth and his habits as they relate specifically to fishing. Both of the men you've met, working above the water's surface and below, will deepen your view of bass and put more of them on the end of your line. And from the end of your line, safely back to the water. Pick a lure to match the shape of the forage. Slender like a shiner, oval like a shad, and the gap is bridged between man and bass. For the bass angler, one of the best crawfish imitations ever devised is the tube lure as rigged by one of the top tournament pros, a fisherman named Shaw. He rigs a tiny sinker inside the lure instead of using a slip sinker or a jig head. Rigged this way, the tube lure fishes more realistically in the water, with less catching in weeds or sticks. Even more important, it skips better across the surface of the water on the cast, and the skip cast is nearly synonymous with Shaw. The hook is his own design, made to hold firmly in place in the lure. The rig works well in many situations and is perfect for the finesse sight fishing technique that Shaw has developed and likes to use here on the river and in other waters sufficiently clear. A pair of polarized sunglasses is vital to this sight fishing system. They cut through glare on the water so Shaw can read the secret code of cover and fish.
On the St. Johns River, and we were trying to present little worms under them, and that's how we learned to skip. Just take spinning rods and slide the baits back in there. And then when I started spending a lot of time sight fishing, you'd make some casts where you'd splash it and you'd realize the fish would move out of the way, and every now and then you'd have a tree limb laying there and you'd skip it up under a tree limb just like we would a normal dock. And all of a sudden I realized that they would key in on that skip and they'd actually follow it. Sometimes they'd take it right off the surface on the skip. And then I realized, I said, well, this is, dummy, why didn't I think of this earlier? That it's just like a natural bait fish or something. being scared away from the fish. So it actually is more of a triggering mechanism, and it's also just a great way to present a bait. I get excited every time I get a bite. I was extremely excited just being able to come back to this river. It's a very special river. There's very few places in the world that have this clear water where you can really relate to the fish and be in their environment and be able to sight fish. But with sight fishing, you're seeing the fish before you ever make the cast, and you visually see them, you make the cast to them, and you have this little window of opportunity there to present the bait before he knows you're there. And that's how you catch him, is you see him first, present a cast real quick, make the exact precise cast where it'll entice him in there. It's actually hunting and fishing combined. There's a lot of hunting, visually hunting and tracking and stalking a bass.
It was just before a full moon 15 years ago when Homer hooked the biggest bass of his life.
When I set the hook on that bass, and I felt the weight of the bass, held on tightly, trying to get him to come my way away from that cover, it pulled the bow of the boat around. He ran over this way and pulled the bow of the boat to the left. He turned and ran back the other direction, pulled the boat over this way to the right, and headed right for that bunch of weeds out there. All I could do was hold tight and try to get his head away from those weeds. He wouldn't come, he kept right on going, so I reared back with everything that I had, trying to turn that monster bass, and pow, my rod broke right in front of my face. The rod broke right in front of my face, and the bass was gone. That's the memory. That'll always be a keeper. I'll always cherish it.
The river lifts them up and along. To Glenn, it could be a painting of a river in paradise.
I come here often with my fishing buddy Flipper. It's mainly because of the bass, but I often find myself lost in the beauty of this magnificent place. This is truly the river of life, the way all rivers should be, the last example of the way rivers were not too long ago. When I first came here years ago and saw that crystal clear water, it was love at first sight, and I've been here ever since. Largemouth bass and bass fishing has been my passion and my obsession for years. I find myself constantly being drawn back to this place, where there's always a chance to get a nibble. By keeping records over the years, I've been able to determine in advance the best times and places to catch big bass. I love catching big bass. This is the best that life has to offer. Bass fishing is a sport where you find satisfaction, great memories, and wonderful friends to share it with. Please take care of it.
You know, I've been blessed with a lifetime of challenges and pleasures fishing for bass, and it's been wonderful.
I'm just as enthused about catching a fish now as I was when I was 5 or 6 or 7 years old. I love it. It's a fascinating thing to catch a fish, and it's still, every single fish is different, and every single fish intrigues me.
With fishing, it doesn't matter if you're 2 years old or whether you're 92. It doesn't matter if you're male or female. It's a fantastic way to have fun. It's a great family sport. You can take kids, you can take, everybody can enjoy the outdoors and go fishing, and that's something real special.